Welcome to the Vol Bros. My name is Evan. This is my brother Rustin, and this is like our 100 and I don't know something 60 something show. I think we're 58th, and that sound still gets me pumped up every time, man. When I hear that intro music, especially after a win. We were just talking about that with Reed, and that. Speaking of Reed, we are so excited that we have the man himself, Mr. Reed Carringer, with us. Reed, thank you so much for joining us.
So glad to be here, guys. Always easy after a win, for sure.
Yes, it is. Initial takeaway, and then I'm going to get y'all's thoughts here. How nice is it? Kevin is actually in the watching on the comments here. Welcome, Kevin. Good to have you, buddy. He said, "Hey, everyone, happy winning weekend again." So I asked Kevin at church this morning. We were talking about last night, and we said, "How nice is it that we just beat a top 15 team on the road, and not everybody's totally satisfied with it?" Like, when was the last time that happened?
Yeah, if you're upset about that win, I don't know what to tell you, because it has been almost 20 years since Tennessee has beat a top 15 team on the road. It was at Georgia in 2006. I was there. The Vols were down. It was crazy. I had great seats for that game. The Vols were down 24-7 in the second quarter of that game. Came back to win 51-33. Georgia had 5 turnovers, and that played a large role in that. But I was at that game. I had no idea at the time that would be the last top 15 win and on the road in almost 20 years. Since then, since the last time Tennessee beat a top 15 team on the road, I have graduated college. I bought 2 houses, built a house, had multiple careers, adopted 2 kids, got married, had 2 kids. It's insane that we shouldn't lose perspective on really what Tennessee accomplished, because road wins against a quality opponent are few and far between, no matter how good you are.
Yep. Reed, can you imagine if you could go back in time and tell 2006 Reed, you're like, all right, now listen,
Yeah.
I know you're not going to believe this, but you need to enjoy this, because what would you have thought?
Yeah, pain is coming. I had no idea at the time, obviously, because the Vols were holding that. Even in that game, when they got down 24-7, I remember thinking, all right, we just get a score here, get this game back manageable, get it to a couple possessions at halftime. I like our chances, we're moving the ball. And sure enough, came back and whooped them. And this one definitely had a different feel and a different flair to it. And that seems like a couple of lifetimes ago for all of us, I think, at this point.
Absolutely.
2006 Tennessee.
Well, Reed, so watching that game last night, what were your immediate takeaways and thoughts about what you saw?
Guys, it went about how I thought it would go, to be honest with you. I thought their defense would cause our offense some trouble, especially with Hurd out. And then we had Campbell go down with questions on the offensive line. Still my biggest question mark on this offense as a whole, as we talked about to do the preseason predictions. So I thought their defense, Venables is a good defensive coach. There's no doubt about that. I thought they would give our offense a little bit of trouble. And then I thought their offense would not give our defense any trouble. And that also proved true, which is a testament to Tennessee's defense, but also that's just not a good offense. Anytime you bench your quarterback halfway through a game in game 4, that's not a great sign for how your season's going to go. I thought Tennessee's defensive front dominated, like I think the 3 of us thought they would. And so I guess maybe the biggest takeaway there is both those teams kind of are who we thought they were. Tennessee can play better offensively. I think Heupel addressed that in the locker room speech, if you caught that. This is not the best Tennessee team you're going to see this year, and I think that should scare some people. But dominating the line of scrimmage, Oklahoma had 36 yards rushing on 34 attempts. The Vols are allowing 1.6 yards per carry this year and averaging almost 6 yards a carry. If you do that, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Rustin, what were your thoughts about what you saw last night?
Whew, there was a lot. First of all, 11 tackles for loss. We said going into it, the Oklahoma offensive line was suspect at best. We jokingly said we would love to see Michael Hawkins in this game. If we see him, it's a win. We end up seeing for a whole half. And I think probably the biggest thing that stood out to me, we've got some dudes in the back end that play at a much higher level than I think we originally thought they would. Tremont McCoy is just a baller. That guy can flat play. And I was very happy to see that the coaches have finally figured out that Jacoby Thomas is a gamer. He may not practice well, but that dude flies to the ball. And we haven't had a hitter like that at safety in about 20 years. I mean, that guy will come take your head off. And it is a lot of fun to watch him fly around. Christian Harrison played well. Andre Turrentine played well. Ricky Gibson had a great night. That secondary, some of it's because of who the quarterback was, but that secondary is going to do a heck of a job this year.
Yeah, that hit that Jacoby Thomas had on that dude down the sideline, that was Eric Berry-esque. That was incredible. And a whole lot of fun to watch, actually. and you know what? I'm gonna give Jacoby Thomas and Keenan Peely a lot of credit. Both of them have had. Well, Jacoby's had a targeting call earlier this year. Keenan had a unnecessary roughness call. Both of them had absolutely monstrous hits last night, and they were both totally clean hits within the rules of the game. Poor Jackson Arnold. I think he's still like picking pieces of grass out of his hair after that hit that Keenan Peely just buried him in the ground. I mean, it was unbelievable. Such a good hit. Obviously, anytime you go on the road and you get a top 15 win in a hostile environment, I mean, man, what a win. And Reed mentioned that video of Heupel in the locker room. If you haven't yet seen that video, I strongly recommend going and finding it. It's all over Twitter. It is absolutely incredible. And I'm going to say one thing about that video that I haven't seen a lot of people mention. The leadership in the room, you notice where Omari Thomas is standing. You notice where Dylan Sampson is standing in that video. And then one person's able to quiet the entire room. And everybody listens to him as he gives Coach Heupel the game ball. And that was Nico Iamaleava. That speaks volumes that the whole locker room immediately quieted down and turned around and listened to him. That was huge because they were pumped. And then Heupel dancing at the end was just incredible. I mean, that whole thing, man. That was just such a good video. VFL said, great video, got me in the fields. Absolutely. Audrey said, Nico, absolutely. Welcome to both of you guys. I'm going to go back through and get the comments here in a minute. Obviously, the field was not in great shape last night. I've already seen some comments come through about that too. Rustin and I, as we were watching, we were talking about it, and surely that was on purpose because they knew that they could not slow down Tennessee, and so they tried with their field. If you watch the Vol Bros Thursday night, then exactly what Reed said, nothing should have surprised you last night because we said on Thursday night, the difference in this game was going to be that Oklahoma's offensive line would not be able to handle Tennessee's defensive line and front. And we said front 19 because there's 19 dudes between the defensive line and linebackers that they can run out there. So we said instead of front 7, front 19. And that is exactly what ended up happening. Exactly what happened. Rustin jokingly did say Thursday night that hopefully we get to see the true freshman quarterback because Jackson Arnold would be so banged up. Well, we saw him, just not under those circumstances. And I mean, just what can you say about Tennessee's defense. Here's a question for the two of you guys, because I was trying to think of an answer. I couldn't think of one. The latest I could get was 2003. But here's my question for y'all. When was the last time Tennessee's defense was this good?
Oh, that's a good question.
Personally, I don't think you can go past like 2003-ish. When you get to, I mean, certainly the 98 team, that linebacking group of the 98 team was just out of this world. But when you get, and I mean, the whole defense was. And so certainly 98 would be, somebody just said 98. Eric, welcome, buddy. He said 98. Third and Kitzelman, I love that name. He said 2002. Absolutely. That's probably a good one. JL said 2001. So that was the other one I was thinking about, was 2001. But I mean, once you get past 2003 and you start thinking about all those years of defenses that we had, obviously there were some great players on those defenses. I mean, yeah, we just mentioned Eric Berry a little while ago, but that's just one dude. We're not talking about the whole side of the ball, you know. So do y'all think early 2000s is the latest we could go?
Not just the whole side of the ball, the three deep. I mean, it's crazy. In the third and fourth quarter, Jackson Moy was everywhere. I mean, that guy's he's the third string defensive tackle, and he was just wreaking havoc.
Absolutely. Audrey said they're full on fury and angry that the other team's even on the field. I love it.
I'm looking up. Yeah, I'm trying to think back to. There are a couple decent Jancic defenses here with Butch, and I was thinking that it was one of those years. I think it was 16. Yeah, they gave up.
Derek Barnett. Yep.
Yeah, 24th in the country in points allowed. So this team should finish ahead of that. I would think. That's a great question. You know, the one caveat, and I don't want to minimize what we saw against Oklahoma, but the one caveat is I still don't think we've played an offense with much of a pulse at this point. NC State had more of a pulse than they showed against Clemson. You know, they didn't have their starting quarterback, shut them down. And I think they had some good skill players on offense that we made look not very good. Oklahoma, I can't say the same for them, to be honest with you. You know, I think we knew we were the better team, went in there and played like it the whole time. And I'm curious to see what this defense looks like when we go up against I mean, the next one will be Alabama, which is going to be a heck of an offense to face for your first big test of the year. I don't think Arkansas has the personnel to scare Tennessee. I don't think Florida has the personnel to scare Tennessee. Alabama is not going to be a Saban coach team, but DeBoer is a really good offensive coach. That's going to be a good test for this offense. But I do agree with y'all as far as the secondary. Really liked what I saw from those guys to start the season. And it seems like they're getting better as they go. Really loved how I think they sort of figured out their roles too. They've sort of solidified that 4 games in. And McCoy, is it too early to say, is that guy a lockdown corner? I mean, that guy's been he shut down that side of the field every game he's been in. 48 snaps yesterday, no completions, an interception, and a pass breakup. You got that? Maybe that guy, you don't throw that side of the field now. Maybe he forces that all the other side towards Ricky Gibson and whoever's playing kind of star. Who I thought, I do think Christian Harrison had a good game. I thought the guys that rotated in played pretty well too. So.
Yep.
Encouraging signs, more speed, more physicality in that secondary, both of those, than they've had in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if there is an award for transfer of the year, but if there is, Jermon McCoy's got to be the front runner. I mean, that dude, at a position of need, he has come in and been a breath of fresh air.
Without without a ton of college experience either.
Yeah.
He's come in and played like he's a veteran big dog out there.
Absolutely.
Ricky
There you
Gibson. Ricky Gibson played really well too. It just didn't stand out as much as McCoy because McCoy was just so clearly better than the guy he was covering. But Ricky Gibson had a good night. I thought the pass interference call on Gibson, I think it was in the second quarter, maybe the third, was just an awful call. I thought Ricky did a great job and just got shafted on that one. But I thought he played really, really well.
I think those two guys on the outside, that's as good as Tennessee's been in that position in a while.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And they're playing well because you only notice them when good stuff happens. We're not sitting here talking about, man, they got burned again. We're not saying that. We said that way too much over the last few years. So that it's like umpires. Nobody knows they did a good job if no one knows they were there.
They're not, and also they're not leading the team in tackles every game. It's just never a good sign when it's like, oh, our corner had 12 tackles. It's not great when your corners are averaging double-digit tackles or something like that. So that's not happening. That's actually something too that stood out defensively is everybody's contributing. It's not all on one person. It's not you've got a couple of really good players that are having to do everything. Even if you look at tackles, leading tacklers, Arion Carter with 6. And then Christian Harrison had 5. Peely had 5. McCoy had 3. Josephs had 3. It's just spread out. It's a much more balanced team defense than we've seen in a long time.
Fantastic point. Mina, like he said, those Al Wilson teams, Audrey said the same thing. Al Wilson team is probably the best defense we've seen. This is our best defense since then. I think that's fair. Let's see. Adam Hartzell, welcome, buddy. He said 2001, that defense. Let's see. I'm going to go run through the comments and questions real quick. So, Zach, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said 19 quarters that's going to stand for a while. Absolutely. I mean, it's been 20 years, right? It's been 20 years in Division I football since somebody's done that. Pretty awesome. Let's see. Kevin said, does anybody have any stats on how many passes Nico attempted beyond 10 yards? I feel like it wasn't many. If I'm right, was it because Sooner line was pretty active or some other reason? What y'all think?
They played a lot of cover too. They were pretty much living with giving us all the underneath stuff. And I think Heupel got a little concerned about the field conditions and got a little too conservative at times. But the one deep ball to Brew, that was a scheme call. They took the extra safety away with motion and got that one-on-one for him. But most of the night Oklahoma had 2 safeties back, and that tends to keep you from attacking downfield a lot.
And if you saw the big plays they hit, and they even commented on it during the game, it's when the safeties were sneaking up to stop the run, or they did on an RPO or something. It was you got the safeties to bite, or at least hold them or step up a step, and then he hit them deep. Off the top of my head, they had the long throw to Thornton. They had another throw to Thornton. It got called back. The long throw to Brew. Only had 21 pass attempts, so you're not going to have a ton of deep shots down the field when you're only throwing it 21 times. Personally, to his point, I don't think Tennessee's really had to show anything offensively on tape this year.
Yeah,
really, they've not trailed. They've never really had a game in doubt. They've not had to break out anything weird that I haven't seen before. We saw a lot of 2 tight end looks against NC State. That was working as a matchup thing. Didn't see it as much against Oklahoma. What they were doing worked. It was a matchup thing. I don't think they've had to show a lot, which hopefully they can continue that after Arkansas and Florida and save a lot for Bama.
Although he did unveil the 2 tight ends lined up in the backfield in the power eye, which I was not expecting to see. That was absolutely beautiful. did not expect to see an offset power eye out of Josh Heupel, but it worked.
He's done it before. It was in 2022, I think.
Yeah.
They ran it. It was a thing of it made Saban go crazy. Do you remember that game? They lined up in I formation, and he went absolutely nuts and called timeout, I think. I do like how they had Holden Stays kind of playing the Princeton Fant H-back sort of role a good bit, which I really liked. Just I don't think they felt like they had to throw it deep. And to Rustin's point, they were playing a 2-safety look, trying to keep them back and limit the big plays and make Tennessee play disciplined offensive football and take what they gave them and see if they could beat them that way. And, Tennessee was able to do it, 3 or 4 yards at a time.
Absolutely. Kevin said our defense was strong, and Thornton had a beautiful reception in stride. My goodness, that ball was absolutely beautiful. And kudos to Dante for catching it and taking off with it. It was awesome. Let's see. VFL in Texas said, don't forget to hit that like button. I think that's a great advice. Everybody should do that. Mississippi Vol said, good evening, Big Orange Nation. Coach Hype did a masterful job. He took what the defense gave us, and he did a great job protecting Nico. He's used to going fast and putting points on the board. He slowed it down and relied on the running game and defense. That showed much growth on his part. Definitely, Coach Heupel adapting his game plan, and he even said that in the post-game presser. Let's see. Thurman Kitzelman said, first of all, that field should be a finable offense. Letter B, that holding call that deleted a touchdown was the most ticky-tack crap ever. And letter C, after that speech in the locker room, coach can stay here forever. I felt that. There you go, buddy. That's exactly right.
So I have 2 responses to that. Number one, for those of you who don't know, Oklahoma is currently in a drought. I went back and looked. It hasn't rained in Norman in 2 weeks. And they tried to say that the field was in the shape it was in because they've been watering it a lot, trying to help the grass. Okay. Anyone who has ever watered their lawn, anyone who's ever managed a field of any kind knows it does not take 18 gallons of water to water grass
per square foot.
and it was insane, the amount of water that was on that field and how slippery it was. And so I went back and checked out some Tulane message boards. Guess what they were complaining about last Sunday? Horrible field conditions and how wet it was. Again, Norman is in a drought. So there is only one way that happens, and that is, hey, our offense sucks, so we need to make that thing an absolute mosh pit. So second thing I wanted to say is his point C there. How many of you all watching that speech from Heupel in the locker room afterwards, for a moment kind of felt like you were listening to vintage Phil Fulmer? Like, there was a few times when he was talking, I was like, I feel like I've heard this before. It was almost eerie how similar some of the things were.
Yeah, I liked all of it, but when he said that this was not about me, and he got choked up and said, I appreciate y'all having a little something extra for me.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of Fulmer too, because Fulmer wasn't one as a coach to make it about him. But he got the, when they beat Spurrier, when they would beat Florida, when he got the context too, without saying it out loud until after they got the win. But yeah, that was, I showed my wife that this morning. It's like, you have to see this, because that's the type of guy you want to play for. That's the type of guy you want to root for as a fan. That's the type of guy you want to send your sons to play for as a father. Just someone who's willing to be honest but vulnerable and encouraging. And I have nothing but great things to say. I'm glad that we got to see that, because I think it gives you a little insight into what that locker room culture is like.
100%.
So total aside here, but did you see how Morgan Wallen entered the stadium tonight?
Huh.
So it's now out there. He entered with Brew, Nico, Josh Heupel, and Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning is in full uniform.
Wait, like Tennessee football uniform?
Head to toe, helmet, shoulder pads, everything.
I'm sure that video will be all over Twitter or X. Excuse me. I always call. I'm just gonna call it Twitter.
I see it. Yeah.
So
Peyton still looks good in orange and white. It turns out.
I will say that second point there. I'm assuming he's talking about Andre Carrick's hold that got Dante Thornton's pass called back.
Yeah.
So that was like a 50-something yard gain. Got all the way down to like the 15, maybe 20-yard line at the most, but I think it's about the 15. So that's a scoring opportunity that was taken away from us. So when people are looking at the score and they're like 25-15, well, if that call hadn't happened, now you're looking at potentially 32-15. And I think people are approaching this very differently today if anybody is upset about it.
Also they gave Oklahoma that last touchdown, just letting them run some clock. They were playing the clock.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't trying to stop them. I think we'll probably talk about it, but play calling in the second half was different than play calling in the first half. And I think a lot of that was situational as well.
Absolutely.
Tennessee could have scored more points.
For sure.
I don't think Oklahoma could have scored more points.
Well, and let's be honest, on that touchdown drive that they had, that first one, the first of the season, the play that they got, they had a huge chunk play. Well, we had our third string linebackers in there at the time. We had Edwin Spillman and Caleb Perry in there for that play. And then they ran back out Keenan Peely and Arion Carter trying to keep him out of the end zone when it got down to like the 5-yard line.
And they had that fourth down where it was 4th and 2, I think. And Tennessee stopped them. And then there was a penalty that kept the drive alive, Not for that penalty. There's all these things there. But if you watch that game, Tennessee, I think, closed a 6-point favorite or so, easily covered. Probably could have tripled the spread if they wanted to.
Yeah. What is this feeling? Not used to this, man. Oh man, it's that BVS. It's still got a hold of me a little bit, I think. Everybody has to get over their battered ball syndrome, I guess. Well, I'm going to come back to that on my play of the game, though. I got to save that for my play of the game. So Kevin said Nico actually slid this week. That was good to see. Absolutely. VFL in Texas says it's always good to see UT beat OU, no matter the shade of orange. Jared was talking about the field condition. Yep, it was horrible. Let's see. Tony, welcome, buddy. He said, good win. Got to get Brew more than 4 catches. Jacoby Thomas needs to start at safety for the rest of the whole year and forever. John Campbell can't play a game without getting hurt. It's a tough position to play, man.
That was a freak play. If you watch it, Oklahoma's player is probably out for the year. It looked like.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It wrapped up into that play. So it was just kind of one of those things.
That was a Brew McCoy type injury on that Oklahoma dude.
Well, you know who it was?
No.
Kendall Dolby, transfer from Northeast Oklahoma A&M College.
That's who that was?
Yep.
Huh. Well, dang, I hate it for him.
Yeah,
I hate that. You never want to see anybody get injured, but especially a dude who's living his dream like that guy.
It's just funny that somebody that we've talked about constantly for the last month was the one who ended up going out on a cart.
Well, I hate that for him.
And yeah, that ankle was in the wrong direction. That thing's definitely broke.
It was horrible. Our best wishes to that guy. Prayers for speedy recovery, because that was just awful. Just awful. Let's see. Robert, welcome, buddy. He says, so now the media is saying Josh will go back and be the Sooners head coach, but I don't believe he will.
Yeah, right.
He knows where the money is and where his best opportunity is. Let's see. Mino Likey's here. Good to have you, Mino Likey. Kevin, good question. He said, so what did we not see last night and thus far that we will see against Georgia, Alabama, and other folks?
Offensively, or what, like scheme-wise, or competition-wise?
The good news about this is there is some stuff that we have no clue that we're going to end up seeing, because Heupel is the mastermind, is planning stuff that nobody has seen yet. We did see one thing happen last night that we have not yet seen this year, and that was the speed option. They actually ran it a little different. I don't know. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think we've ever ran it the way we did last night either.
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson lined up on Nico's left, and then they ran the speed option to the right. Typically, it's to the side that the running back lines up on. So that was a new little wrinkle. But like Reed was saying, we didn't have to show much last night. So it's hard to know what we will see, because, man, they're brilliant, and I think that's a good thing that we don't know what we're going to see, because that means that Kalen DeBoer and Kirby Smart don't know either.
I think the biggest thing we haven't seen yet, we basically have Lamar Jackson at quarterback, and we haven't seen the arc read yet. Normally when you've got an extremely mobile quarterback, you run the inside zone, but you can also run split zone and have the H-back come across, arc around that defensive end that you're reading, and he becomes a lead blocker for the quarterback. If you ever watch the Ravens' first touchdown today, they ran arc zone. But if you ever watch Lamar Jackson play, the Ravens run it for him all the time. When Jalen Hurts was at Alabama and at Oklahoma, they ran it both places all the time for him. I'm positive it's in there somewhere, and they're probably hanging on to it for overplaying defenses like Georgia, Alabama. We'll probably see it a lot in those games.
And when they need a big play, that they did that. They saved that option. They ran it a couple times in 2022 when they needed a couple yards in a big spot.
Yeah.
So I know he's got some stuff like that in the back pocket. But just competition-wise, offensively, all those teams are better than Oklahoma. So Tennessee's defense will be tested in a way it's not been tested yet. And obviously, you can only play the opponent before you, right? And Tennessee has passed every single test thus far with flying colors defensively. But they're going to be tested in ways that they haven't seen yet. I'm just encouraged by the overall physicality and speed upgrade as a whole on that roster. Even the wide receiving core guys looks faster this year. Brew, Thornton, those guys, haven't really got Brazel going yet. Even though they tried to hit him a couple times with a deep ball. I think there's that core has a lot of potential. Squirrel was sliding all over the place on that crappy. It looked like that field was 6 inches long. It looks like my house is about 1,000 feet from the road, so I can get by without mowing the yard for a while because nobody can see it. And that's kind of what their field looks like.
Let's see here. So, Keg, welcome back. He said, "Go Big Orange." HD14 and Mino, like you both said, Hawkins played better than Jackson. He did, but I feel sorry for the Jackson kid. He from snap one, the defensive line was in his face the whole game long. Tony said, "I know he's doing okay, but James Pierce must have read the press clipping. He rushes too far up the field. He's got to start showing up." He did rush past the quarterback at least twice last night. He can't go past the quarterback. That's for sure. Randy said that field was crap. I agree, Randy. Let's see.
I thought James Pierce played extremely well last night, honestly. He did his job. And we've talked about this before. How many times last year did we talk about Elijah Herring getting us beat because of alignment and assignment? James Pierce is doing his job. He's getting aligned properly. He's doing his assignment. His assignment may be to rush hard upfield to force the quarterback into Omari Thomas, Bryson Eason, Jackson Moy, Omar Norman Lott. If you look at those guys' numbers, their numbers are through the roof. I mean, defensive tackles don't put up the kind of numbers ours do.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that is 100% because of James Pierce. So, just because his numbers may not match production, he's still being really productive.
Speaking of Nico's leadership, Audrey said that Nico did a live stream and some of the guys started talking trash, and he calmly told them it wasn't necessary, and they all stopped doing it. That's cool. The fact that they listened to him like that says a whole lot. Kevin asked a great question. He says, "How about Herb Street commenting on players going down with fake injuries on live television?"
Finally,
that was kudos to Herb Street for addressing that elephant in the room, because that rule's got to get changed, because it just undoes your competitive advantage that you have because of your scheme and the way you play, which is not what it's about, right? Like, we're supposed to settle this game on the field, in between the lines, not in injury timeouts.
Exactly.
I was glad he said something for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, especially the Dejon Terry one where he goes down. Yeah. It's obvious he's not injured. Then 2 plays later, he makes a tackle.
Yeah.
Right.
Mississippi Vol said, "You're exactly right, Russ. The additions we made to our secondary were the missing pieces we were looking for. Nothing against the guys we had last year, but the difference is night and day." Especially what Reed was talking about, their speed, man, and the way they tackle. Good night. We had nobody on our team last year in the secondary that hit like Jacoby Thomas hits.
And McCoy he's going to smother you. That guy, you're not getting away from him. They're both very physical, which
absolutely.
And and their backup's Jalen McMurray, who had a huge hit on special teams last night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he was on my list to talk about because I thought he played well. So I was starting to look like maybe you have a little bit of depth at that position. I hate to say it out loud because I'm scared. But you're right. He was on my list.
Big Vol Daddy, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He's already calling the Hogs, man. He's like, "Give me 2 weeks from now. I'm ready for it."
That's the beautiful thing. We get a week off, so these guys that are dinged up can get back, get healthy. Assuming they don't get injured at the Morgan Wallen concert tonight. So they can get healthy. And then, we all saw Arkansas and Auburn. Like, there's nothing to be concerned about there. That was 2 really bad teams trying to figure out who was worse.
Yeah, exactly. VFL said 8 different players with a tackle for loss. It's always a good day when you got that stat.
Yep.
Brennan, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said, "How about we were just talking about the injury from the Oklahoma defensive lineman." So here's his proposal. What do y'all think about this? If a guy needs any medical attention, he misses the entire next series or a minimum of 5 snaps. What are your thoughts? So go ahead.
I think the hardest part is tracking it. I agree. That's going to be their biggest issue. You almost have to assign a ref to solely monitor that. And we've talked before about how little they pay these officials. Like, it's ridiculous. It's $1 billion industry, and these are part-timers who are getting paid by the game. And it's not much. And they have to pay their own travel expenses, which is even dumber. To say they're going to add a whole nother person and that person's sole job is to track injuries, I don't see it.
But you're right. That is the most difficult part of this, because I totally agree with Brennan. How they approach it is, it's a player safety issue. If a player gets injured, then he has to sit out at least the rest of that series. The difficult thing there is keeping an eye on what number that guy was, and then who's going to monitor, make sure he doesn't run back out on the field. That's the thing. And so you would have to have a guy designated just for that, because that line judge who's standing over there on that sideline, he's got too many other things to be thinking about every play.
Well, what you maybe do is put it on the team, and then they're fined like significantly if he goes back in.
That's a good
whoever's in
idea.
charge of your subs on that side of the ball has to X them out, or you're fined $100,000 or some large sum of money that an AD is not going to want to pay.
That's a fantastic idea.
I just looked it up again to see if they changed the numbers any at all for inflation. So this year in the SEC, those officials that we watched last night get paid $2,500 each for the game. But here's the kicker. None of them are local, and they have to pay for their own travel. So they have to pay for a flight and a room, which, for example, the top official in the Big 12 lives in Louisiana. And so he flies all over the country for Big 12 games. He said, I know him. He said his average expense to travel is around $1,000. So if the SEC is paying $2,500, those refs are making $1,500 to call a national television multi-million-dollar endorsement game.
Yeah.
Tell me how much sense that makes.
0 cents. That's how much sense that makes. Will, good to have you, buddy. He said I made it to live this time. Hunter, welcome, Hunter. So Hunter joined us Thursday. Reed, just so you know, Hunter is an Oklahoma fan. And he said they mowed the grass on Friday, painted the field, they fertilized and watered all week because the grass was dying from the drought. They didn't forget to mow. So to Hunter's point, if you go back and look at the photos of the field against Tulane compared to last night, the grass is way greener. And he's right. It's because they did paint the field green during this week. And so I'm sure that added to, once that got watered, you have paint that's wet. That cannot create a safe playing surface.
Okay. I'm going to say this one more time. And anybody on here who has ever coached at a high level knows this. When your team sucks.
Patrick said McCoy Island.
Yeah. When your team sucks, you turn the field into a mosh pit, period. Because if you can't stop the other team on your own, you find ways to help yourself out. It's not coincidence.
It's legal. South Carolina did that in 2022, if you remember.
Notre Dame did it to Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart back in the day when they were at USC. I remember game day being there, and they were talking. They literally cut up a chunk of the field to show it on television, and the grass was that long. Like it was just like falling over. There was so much grass. Let's see. Some of the comments, what you were saying earlier, read about is McCoy a shutdown corner. People are saying, yep, and he was a steal in the transfer portal. That was Herb. Kevin said he might be, maybe not have played enough strongest offenses to know yet. And I think, that's what Reed was saying too. I think that's a good point. Let's see. Tony said 2000 was the last defense. Tyler said 2005, while not the most impressive record, had a stellar defense. Held number 6 Florida to 16 points in Gainesville and number 5 Alabama to 6 in Tuscaloosa. That's a good one right there, Tyler. That's what I'm talking about. Randy said, give these guys a like. I think that's great advice. I would recommend that as well. Let's see. Jared said, could Tennessee report field conditions to the SEC or NCAA? Is that even a thing? Like appeal safety hazard? With NIL out there and stuff, field conditions are very important. Now, that's okay. That's actually a legit point right there. Like, we're talking about, like, players' earning potential as well. It's something that I agree this. I don't think they can, but it's something that they need to be able to do.
No,
it's never going to get uniform. Not in my lifetime, I would bet. It's not going to be uniform. Kind of like the dang basketballs in NCAA hoops, where we're using all kinds of different basketballs all year. I just don't think it's going to change right now. Not in the foreseeable future.
And who knows? Someday in the future, we may need to be able to leave the grass high and leave the sprinklers on too. Like
maybe should have done that last year a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Jeremy Pruitt era, they should have just put the sprinklers on and just walked away and just left them running for days at a time.
Sowing some tall fescue out there, letting it get about 4 feet high. There has to be some kind of, like, I'm sure there's some limit on, I can't go out there and plant some winter rye and, have a 3-foot tall field in November.
I would love to see the officiating crew that tries to manage that. Walk out there. Hey, listen, I know y'all sold 100,000 tickets, but we're not going to play on this field. Yeah, right. Go over there and get your $2,500 check and do your job.
Let's see. Tony, welcome, buddy. He said Jacoby Thomas does not get talked about enough. Would love to see him a whole lot more. I think you're going to. I'm so sorry. I'm just now at 9:16 in the comments, and it's 9:46. So I'm going to skip way ahead. Sorry about that, y'all. Brendan said, I feel like Coach Heupel leads the game in innovation. Totally agree, man. Totally agree. He is fantastic. Let's see. Audrey said, I'm not convinced that last touchdown was actually a touchdown. I agree with you. I agree. Carl, welcome, buddy. Carl said, I'm a little concerned how a good defensive line can stifle our run game. Yep. And plus, we didn't have Lance Hurd last night. John Campbell got hurt. Dane Davis was a liability, unfortunately, last night.
Got to get healthy.
Played well.
Got to get healthy on that side of the ball in this next 2 weeks. Yeah, to your point, Johnson did play well and limited snaps filling in over there. And I noticed he was moving around pretty good for a giant guy. I was kind of surprised to see Dane Davis was the lowest rated offensive player on the team.
Shocker.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Let's see. Will said, okay, well, I'm going to save that for later. That's a great question. I'm trying to get through a couple more. Reese, welcome, Reese. Jason Jenkins was huge. That safety helped a lot. Reese said, I'm pretty sure Arnold may have been concussed after that Peely hit when he bounced his head off the ground. Legit, he might have been, no joke, because he buried him into the ground. Andrew said, the next 13 days will be the longest of my life. I hate off weeks, but we need it. I agree. We do need it. They need to get that offensive line healthy heading into the rest of this season. Eric said Boo Carter laid the wood to the Oklahoma running back on the sideline. Let's see. Ashton, nice, buddy. He said Oklahoma will get their first SEC win sooner or later. That's pretty good, bud. Okay.
It's pretty nice to hand them their first SEC loss. Pretty good trivia question in a few years.
Yep.
Absolutely. Big Dave said, I think Johnson did a really good job. I agree. He came in and played well.
He was the highest rated offensive lineman for Tennessee yesterday, according to Pro Football Focus.
Well, that's good stuff right there.
When John Campbell, we were actually watching the game together when John Campbell got injured, and they tried to roll Dane Davis, or they tried to roll somebody else out there. I told him I really wish they'd roll Dane over to the right side and let Larry Johnson get some snaps. And then they came out that way after halftime, and I thought he looked great.
So, having said all that, y'all can let us know in the comments as well who your player of the game was. But we're going to give our players of the game. Reed, you want to go first? Who was your player of the game last night?
Well, we've been talking about him. I think it's going to be McCoy for me. I absolutely shut down that side of the field. Oklahoma was not getting any life offensively, and that pick was just really huge early in the game. Really huge. Total kind of set the tone for that defense. I think really kind of got Arnold in his head as well. Because if you watch that play again and they called attention to it, they really baited him into that throw where they all sunk up and then just fell back after kind of his first read. And Thomas was McCoy was waiting for it. And unlike all the DBs I feel like we've had for a decade, he kept his head looking at the quarterback and the football and went up and caught it. So just for that alone, I think deserves player of the game. But I feel like he's so far this year through 4 games, maybe my MVP of the team as far as a massive upgrade at a huge position of need on this team. And it's been just his physicality, even when they tried to test him deep a couple times, he was running right with the wide receiver. Haven't seen a weak spot in his game yet. Again, haven't played a plus offense yet, but haven't seen a weak spot in his game. So Jermod McCoy on his first massive SEC game, really coming through for Tennessee and setting the tone early, I think, for that Tennessee defense.
Fantastic choice. It's hard to argue with that. Rustin, who's your player of the game?
I'll take Jermod McCoy also. But honorable mention to Arion Carter. He led the team in tackles. They did exactly what we said they were going to do. He was the spy on Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold, he may have been in concussion protocol, but he also may have been in I don't want none protocol because late in the second quarter, he was on the sidelines looking like, please don't make me go back out there. And that's what we wanted. We wanted Arion Carter and those defensive linemen just stalking him the whole first half, and he wanted nothing. My favorite part of the whole game was when Michael Hawkins came in and they zoomed in on his face and his eyes were like this. He wanted no more either. He was looking around going, wait, why am I out here? And then the center helped him out by snapping the first snap 3 feet to his right, which just really helped his nerves. So beautiful all the way around.
And then that when Tennessee brought the house at him, and they brought 8 dudes at him, and 3 of them got through the line, and he was just like, oh my gosh. he just went down. He's like, all right, I give up. That was hilarious. My player of the game. So I almost went with Jermod McCoy earlier, and the more I thought about it, I was like, no, I'm going to give it to 2 guys for a first half and a second half, because one of them was big in the first half and then didn't see him anymore hardly, and then the other guy was huge in the second half in the same position.
We don't allow
that. At interior defensive line, my players of the game were Elijah Simmons and Jackson Moy, because in the first half, Elijah Simmons was living. He was getting mail delivered to him in the backfield. First 2 plays of the game, he blew him up in the backfield. And then in the second half, Jackson Moy was like, okay, my turn. And he just took over. That one play, he came in. It was funny. It was number 51 on number 51. The folks were telling us Thursday night that they were so excited, the Oklahoma fans on our live stream. We had an interesting crew Thursday night. We had 4 or 5 Oklahoma fans, 1 Missouri fan, and 1 Oregon fan. And the Oregon fan was pretending to be the 60-foot tall duck that Oregon put in the river at Big Ten Media Days. It was an interesting night. But the Oklahoma fans were telling us they were so excited to get Hickman back to start at center this week because he's such a good offensive lineman. And Jackson Moy literally put him on his rear and was just like, okay, get out of my way. I'm going to go get the quarterback now. It was so much fun to watch those dudes. So they are my players of the game. Let's see. Bishop Frank, welcome, buddy. He said, so he's an Oklahoma fan. He said, big salute, Tennessee, Boomer. And then everybody else is supposed to say Sooner. It won't on this program, but we appreciate you joining us. We loved having all the Oklahoma folks with us.
Yeah, I'll address that too, because I was there in 2014 covering the team, so I didn't really hang out with people as working, but I've had a lot of friends go to this game, and every single one of them said, without a doubt, the best opposing fans that they have ever been around, period. Not even close. Cool. So hats off to any Sooner fans out there. All my friends that made the trip said y'all are the best that they've ever been around, and they travel a lot to games. So hat tip to y'all. Appreciate it. Hopefully, y'all come back up here, we'll extend the same hospitality.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Great point. They don't bark at you like dogs there, do they, Reed?
True. I'll take Boomer Sooner over that any day.
Or you can go to LSU in the swamp where they throw cups full of pee on you. So, the expectations are pretty low.
Yeah. Welcome to the SEC. Mina, like he said, Dylan Sampson, her player of the game. Audrey said Keenan Peely and Jermon McCoy. I think those are two excellent choices. Let's see. Carl said Keenan Peely. Keenan had an incredible game. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. I love seeing him play linebacker.
Yep.
Like a
Reese,
cruise missile.
yes, absolutely. Reese made a good point. He said Joshua Josephs, 2 huge forced fumbles. Brennan said Keenan Peely, his player of the game. VFL said Thornton. That long touchdown catch got us going and broke their will. He made that DB look slow. He burned that dude so bad.
He looks really good this year, guys.
Yep.
Really good.
The way he's catching the ball. Like, he didn't catch the ball like that last year.
No. I'm looking forward to like a game where we need to air it out a little bit more and see what kind of what these receivers can do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So speaking of that, one thing that we have not really seen that apparently is coming, Heupel mentioned last week after, that game, they're talking about what does Mike Matthews bring to the team. And he said, well, he allows us to go to our 4 wide set. He's like, we ain't got to do that yet. And so apparently that's coming. So they got a 4 wide set they're going to show off at some point. Bishop said SEC tests are real. Salute the Tennessee defensive line is elite. I agree. It's a nice feeling, and we're not accustomed to it over the last several years, and I'm still getting used to it. It's
Joseph's was my backup for player of the game, just because I thought he had 2 forced fumbles, but recovered 1, and it was just a massive play, game changer.
Amen. TK, welcome, buddy. He said, "How about Deshaun Bishop coming in and running hard?" Absolutely.
The 2 running backs carried the ball 40 times for 167 yards. That's a good night.
Mm-hmm. Big Dave said his player of the game, essentially the whole defense. I love it. That's my player of the game too, man. Like, I love that. That's a great one. Kevin said probably Keenan Peely, but definitely somebody off the defense. Matt, welcome, buddy. He said still driving back from Norman and Chattanooga. Long drive. Hey,
Holy
respect
cow.
for that, dude, that you're driving that. That's awesome, man. Flights are crazy, I know. Matt's from right here with us in Chattanooga, so that's cool. Let's see. Mina Likey said she's got so many players in the game. She loves this question. VFL said Bishop was a beast. Absolutely. Jared says it's nice to have a kicker who can kick the ball out of the back of the end zone every single time.
Yeah.
Amen. And because of that, Tennessee is ranked number 1 in the country in kickoff return yardage allowed. It's like 0. I love that. Let's see. Sean said, I loved Keenan Peely violence. Stash Man, that's a great name. He said, Coach Tim Banks has got his players and coaches finally recruited speed and length with Coach RG, Coach Inge. The sky's the limit.
All right, now hold on. Give the man some props here. I knew somebody was going to do this tonight. Like, everybody in the offseason
Willie
railed about Willie Martinez. Our secondary is playing really well. Throw him in with Inge and Garner. He's doing a good job.
Well, that's like what Reed was saying. They actually looked for the ball. That was nice.
Like, what world am I living in? I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's
We're going to chase this feeling.
Yeah. Tennessee has given up 10 kick return yards this year. 2 returns for 10 yards.
That's what I'm talking about. Tyler, dude, I knew you would appreciate my tweet last night, Tyler, when I tweeted about Jackson Ross being ambipedal. And when I saw that you liked it, I was like, yeah, I knew you would. I was thinking about you. The ambipedaling Jackson Ross for me put our defense in excellent position to do what they do each time. Look fantastic for someone who hasn't got much work yet this season. That's a good point.
He was on my radar too, Tyler, for player of the game, because he didn't have any bad punts. One of them directly led to a safety, which was a huge play.
Yep.
When your punter essentially scores for you, I think you've got to be in the running for player of the game. And he was great.
Absolutely.
You kind of forgot he existed there for the first part of the season. So welcome back. I'm glad to know you're still healthy there, Jackson Ross. You look really good. But Tennessee, what did he average? 48 yards a punt, I think, something like that yesterday. A couple inside the 20. Really, really a great job.
Absolutely. Punter you, baby. Punter you.
48.4 yards a punt, had a 57-yarder in there, 2 inside the 20.
And we appreciate all 503 people who are watching across all 3 platforms right now. We appreciate you very much. We got, now 505. So, hey, welcome to those 2 new people. We are 506. So we're glad all y'all are watching. That is exciting. Zach said Elijah Simmons and Jackson Moy had the center shook. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Kyle said, what's up, guys? Go Big Orange. Elite defense. Yes. Isn't that nice to say again? Man, it's so nice to say again. Audrey said, Holy Moy was a beast. Yes, he was. Reese is giving his place in the game.
Number 1 still in the nation in total defense. 176 yards a game over Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas currently are the top 5.
Not too shabby. And of all the teams that you just mentioned, only one of those has 2 top 25 wins. And that would be the Vols, clad in big orange.
The team we like, correct?
Absolutely. Let's see. Kyle's joining us. He's saying the field was bad. We agree, man. We were talking about that. Jackson Arnold was Zach's player of the game.
Well,
that's great. I like that. Kyle said Tim Banks was his player of the game. Yeah, Kyle, we talked about that speech earlier. It was amazing. It was awesome. JL said Nico was a cool cat back there. Tony said a field goal kicker and punter. So my mom, for the first time ever, she had a player that she recommended a player of the game to me last night after it was over. This was the first time she's ever done this. So I'm going to read her comment. That way everybody can know who my mom's player of the game was. And she had a good reason for it too. She said, so that little kicker gets my vote. She said for player of the game, because those 3 points kept Oklahoma from winning with 2 more touchdowns. So she was like, they said we were 22, they were 9, plus 7 is 16, plus 7 more is 23, and then they win by a point. So that kicker getting us to 25 kept it out of reach. And she said that the little kicker looks like he's 12. I guess he's getting really old. I guess I'm getting really old. And I said,
she
no,
understands football math. She understands football math better than a couple of Tennessee's former head football coaches. So, shout out to Evan's mom, the Vol Bros mom. I don't know what to call it.
She does not have Butch Jones's chart.
She actually understands basic math. She can't be a head coach then at Tennessee because that's not allowed.
Kevin said, what makes Thornton look so much better is that Nico throws a pass that leads the receiver well. It's not just dropping a pass over someone's shoulder. Yeah, man, that pass he had last night, good grief. The angle from behind Nico, whoo, that's fun to watch. Let's see. Okay, so, all right, so man, this is awesome. Our comments are blowing up.
You know what's also great about her comment? It's so nice that our team looks like an SEC team now, because Max Gilbert is 6 foot 200. Like, he's not a little guy, but he looks tiny compared to the rest of our roster.
You got like a 6'7", 340 pounder out there with him. Makes everybody look small.
Yep.
Brennan said your mom is a smart lady. Let's see. Hey, the duck joined us again. Reed, this is the duck I was telling you about. How about that? Welcome, Darth Ducky. It's good to have you back. He said, how far do you think Tennessee can go? All 3 of us on this live stream, when we did our SEC predictions or our predictions for Tennessee, all 3 of us said 11-1. So I think we're going to stick with it.
It looks better after that win, for sure. I still think you want to get through beating Arkansas on the road, and then you've got Bama and Georgia, so you got to split those.
Absolutely. So I'm going to get Chris's comment, and then we're going to give our play of the game. Chris said elite defense, elite quarterback and skill players, great coaching job being up 3 scores using the clock given the circumstances. I love this team. Amen, brother. Amen, brother. So to the 555, I had to say because it's a cool number. It's all fives. To the 555 people watching right now across all three platforms, very much appreciate you joining us. Reese, Seth said 11-1 is what he's thinking. Reese said, can we talk about Squirrel White's mistakes on fielding the ball on punts and kicks? It's going to hurt us in the long run. I wasn't a huge fan of the diving catch over his shoulder. That was not smart. And notice he didn't do it again after that. He ran away from the next one, though. I think he got told about that on the sideline.
He just also was losing his footing. So, some of that, I don't know that how much of that was a decision as, oh, I'm going to go catch this ball. Oh, crap. And I'm, you're just ice skating out there a little bit. That was concerning.
Yeah. We also have one of the best special teams coaches in America at any level, college or pro. So those things get fixed. Mike Eckler does not play around. That will get solved.
So y'all can let us know in the comments who your player of the game was. Or so we just did that. The play of the game, I mean. Reed, what was your play of the game?
Well, since you set the bar by cheating earlier and giving 2 players of the game, I'm going to cheat with this answer. I am going to give you a drive of the game, which would be right before the half when Tennessee was trying to salt the clock away and trying to score as well. And they ran the ball 8 straight times with Dylan Sampson. So he carried it himself 8 straight times for 46 yards and put the balls up 19-3 right before the half. And then Tennessee got the ball back to start the half. That's the second half. And I just thought once Tennessee was up 19-3 in that drive, running the clock, keeping the ball out of Oklahoma's hands. And, there was one longer run in there, maybe 12, 13 yards, but they weren't big runs. They were 4 yards, 6 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 12 yards. He just warmed down. I think they saw the look that they were given that, hey, if you can't stop it, we're going to keep doing it. And credit to his fitness and the fitness of that offensive unit to be able to execute that, because that was kind of where we took control of the game at that point. And it was pretty apparent that Oklahoma didn't have the firepower to come back. So that was it's not the flashy play. It's not the sexy play, but it was 8 plays in a row of Dylan Sampson giving Oklahoma some medicine.
I love it. I think that's a great choice. Rustin, what was your play of the game?
I'll take Joshua Joseph on the goal line, forced fumble and recovery.
Massive momentum swing.
Yep, huge.
That was unreal, really. It's like that again. It's like looking at the football. If you're a DB, what just happened? We just forced a fumble right after we gave up a fumble.
Yeah,
it's like the things that used to happen to Tennessee, where you make a big play and then you give it right back. Now,
yes,
on the other side of that, and it feels weird. I don't.
Yes.
What was even better was there was one ref, only one, who saw it. And he did not let the other ones overrule him. He knew it was out. He called the fumble. Joshua Joseph came out of the pile holding the ball like he definitely had it. And everybody's kind of looking around like, what? And there was one guy who was saying, yep, he's got it. It's Tennessee ball. So kudos to whoever that ref was.
So I'm going to break the rules again on this one. I'm going to give honorable mention to the play before Rustin's play. The false start that made it half the distance to the goal. The thing that I love about that play, and if everybody, seriously, you need to go back and watch that play, because Bryson Eason and Joshua Josephs got so excited that they had caused a false start. They were literally jumping up and down, like holding each other's shoulder pads. Like they were so, it looked like 2 little kids having just a good old time, having fun. They're like jumping up and down. And he actually got asked about that in the post-game presser too. And he said, yeah, we were just having a good time.
It looked like toddlers on the playground. So just like legitimately, like pure unbridled, like kid-like joy. And they did So you had the punt that got down there. So shout out the ambi peddling punter. And then
nice.
You had the Tennessee's defensive line, that side of the line shifted and it caused their guard, I believe, to jump. And so that backed them up. And then the next play was the safety. So their celebration, it's like they knew, like we're gonna get that guy next play, and sure enough, they did.
But you're exactly right. That is the best description I could possibly think to give it. It was like two toddlers jumping up and down on the playground. It was just pure unbridled joy and happiness. I was like, man, that's what this game's about right there. It was fantastic. So if you want a good smile, go back and find that play right before the play Rustin mentioned, because it was fantastic. So a couple other honorable mentions. The Dante Thornton touchdown, the pass from Nico, and the catch in stride, just poetry in motion, man. It was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Jacoby Thomas's hit on that dude on the sideline. Whoa, that had to be mentioned. Obviously, Jason Jenkins getting in the game, and the first thing he does is getting a safety. Dude, that's awesome. I mean, what more could you ask for as a defensive lineman? But my play of the game, and we did not confer, we did not talk about this beforehand, but my play of the game was also the Joshua Joseph strip and recovery on the 5-yard line, because the best way I can describe it was, I now know that the era of Tennessee football that we have lived in, like Reed was saying earlier, those things normally happen to Tennessee, not the other way around. I mean, like, we all have been conditioned over the last 14 years or more that as soon as that happened and they get the ball on the 5-yard line, it's like, okay, well, they're about to score. I mean, just go ahead. The next play, it's going to happen. Here we go. And nope. Instead, Reese said more like 20 years. Yeah. And literally the next play, we have a defensive lineman to make that kind of play. Totally swung the momentum of the game.
To strip it and recover it also so quickly that no one even really saw it.
Yep. Absolutely.
I've not seen, he's been so good this year. Just so good.
So that was my play of the game, because I think for all of us who still suffer from battered Vol syndrome, side note, we have a shirt on our website. If you like a shirt that says battered Vol syndrome survivor, we have 2 different styles that you can, thevolbros.com. So for all of us who suffer from battered Vol syndrome, that was the medicine, man. That was it. Like, it's over. It's a new day. We do those things to other teams now, not the other way around. And how nice is that? Oh, man, it was just wonderful. So that was my play of the game. Some of the other folks in the comments, let's see. Kyle Moore said Joshua Joseph's turnover. Absolutely. He said no play was bigger than that one. Will asked a great question. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to answer it, but which teams would you not want to play? Texas and Ohio State, probably the only 2 I could think of. Give me everybody else. Let's see. Kevin said play the game, turnover on the goal line. Yep. Brendan, hey, appreciate that, man. Brendan said best UT, the real UT, post and pregame coverage out there. Give them a like. We appreciate that. Let's see. Reese said the safety won us that game. VFL's the same thing. Joshua Joseph's play. Kyle said these coaches are doing an unbelievable job. Ooh, I like Oreo Puppy Dog. That's just a cool name anyway. But he said Elijah Simmons's first play of the game, busts up in the backfield and makes a tackle for loss, first play of the game. Set the tone, man. Absolutely. I love that. Big Dave said Nico to Thornton for 6. A lot of good plays of the game. Troy, welcome, buddy. He said that Jackson Moy was this player of the game. Okay. So I have one last thing for us before we sign off. To the 646 people watching right now, you all are awesome across all 3 platforms. That's what I'm talking about. We appreciate y'all watching. Andrew, absolutely. Great call. Okay, so I have one last thing. Based on the AP poll today, if the college football playoff were to start tomorrow, this would be what it looks like. And I think this gives us a nice little insight into just how drastic the current format can really change the top, what is and is not the top 25 in all actuality. So you'll notice the top 4 teams are conference champions. Conference champions. So I went through the AP top 25 and I placed the conference champion according to ranking, which is how they're going to do it at the end of the year, in the spot that they would be. So if it were to start tomorrow, Texas would have the number 1 spot in the playoff. Ohio State would be number 2 as the Big Ten champion. Miami would then be number 3 seed overall with a first round bye, even though they're currently 7th in the country. And Utah, was as the Big 12 champion, would jump from number 10 all the way up to the 4 seed. Now, the biggest mover and shaker would be Boise State because they're currently number 25. So they would jump all the way up and take that group of 6 spot. And so if this were to play out, Tennessee would be hosting Penn State in a first round game. That'd be cool. The second game would be tough, but that first round game would be a lot of fun to watch in Neyland. Alabama would face off with Missouri. Ole Miss would host Oregon. That'd be a pretty fascinating game to watch. And Georgia would get to host Boise State and then get to play Utah. So you got to like that 5 spot for sure. What would you all think about this playoff?
I love hosting a game in Neyland.
Amen.
Right? If Tennessee can, well, obviously we'll take whatever I can get. I would love Tennessee just to get in. But if the Vols can host a playoff game in Neyland in December, right before Christmas, sign me up.
Amen.
Also, I might have to sell a kidney.
Yeah, for real.
It is interesting, though. I think that's a good way to lay it out, Evan, because you really see how the rankings affect the seeding there. And that 12 spots are going to end up being up for grabs. And obviously the conference champions, those aren't going to be settled until the last weekend of the season, largely. Lots of SEC flavor, though. Goodness.
Mm-hmm. Half the field, 6 teams from the SEC would be in this playoff. There would be 1 from the ACC, that'd be Miami. 1 from the Big 12, that'd be Utah. The Big 10 would then have Ohio State, Penn State, and it sounds weird to say, but Oregon. And so the 6 from the SEC, 3 from the Big 10, 1 ACC, 1 Big 12, and 1 Mountain West, I think is where Boise State is. Darth Dougie said, excuse me, it's weird having Oregon in the Big 10, man. Sorry.
It feels foul to say that. It does. It feels
wrong.
Nice.
Yeah. Foul with the bird. I like that. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Well played. So this is what, go ahead, Rustin. You're muted. There you go.
The only thing I'd say is I hope they change this really soon. Like, this is so
Amen.
dumb. So dumb.
Amen.
Boise State should not get to leapfrog 15 teams to get into the playoffs. Georgia should not have to go from number 2 to number 5 over a technicality that's outside of their control. That's stupid.
Yep.
Like, everything about this is just dumb.
Absolutely.
Well, Nate, in this scenario too, say Texas and Georgia play in the SEC championship, Texas wins, then Bama's probably going to move up ahead of Georgia. It's going to be that last week is going to be really weird, depending on bowl or conference championship games.
Right.
Which is why they did it this way, because they want to give the conference championship games a lot of ratings and meaning, which it didn't have previously, largely.
But that ends up being even dumber, though, because, let's say Kansas State sneaks up and beats Utah in the Big 12 championship. Now, all of a sudden, Kansas State jumps from number 23 after getting boat raced by BYU to number 4 in a first-round bye. It's just ignorant.
Yep.
And I can't even – they barely beat somebody, too, the other day. Yeah, there's going to be a team like that. I mean, we saw it in the 4-team playoff with TCU, right? They didn't belong. I get why they were in there, but they didn't belong. That was a boring college football game, as boring as it gets.
Yep.
The national championship. So it's still going to happen. I guess the perk of the 12-team playoff is, in theory, you won't have that in the national championship at least, because if you get a team like Boise or Kansas State that gets in, they're going to get throttled by Georgia in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I just don't understand why we can't just go, hey, here's the 12 best teams. All right, let's play.
Yeah, that's fair. Because let's be honest, if you're looking at it, okay, so it's not going to come from the SEC or Big Ten as far as somebody sneaking into the playoff, but it certainly could come from the Big 12 and potentially the ACC. I mean, when you're looking at this right here, so the top 2 teams in the ACC on this top 25 are Miami and Louisville.
Yeah.
So let's say those two, things play out the same way, and it's this at the end of the year, and Louisville beats Miami. Then Louisville jumps from 15 to number 4, and they have a first round bye in the playoff. And I get it. Reed's exactly right. They're trying to give those conference championship games some meaning. But it may come back and bite us in the rear doing that, because teams that should not have been in the playoff are going to end up in the playoff. And then it makes you wonder, okay, what happens to Miami? Do they even get in the playoff at that point? Or does that, we saw last year how losing in a SEC championship game can hurt your ranking. And so, Georgia dropped 5 spots? And so, so let's say Louisville wins and Miami doesn't fall all the way out, but then that knocks number 11 out.
Well, they probably would. At the way it is right now, they probably would fall out. But Miami's a team to watch out. They've got the second-ranked offense in the country right now.
Yeah, they're good.
Good quarterback. That's a team that I feel like nobody's really talking about, maybe because they play in the ACC, which I understand, but very good offense this year.
Lincoln Park was talking about Oklahoma, the rest of their schedule. He said they have to play Texas, Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Yeah, that is not going to go well for them. It will not go well. Darth Ducky said SEC is going to eat itself. Too many good teams. That will happen some, because as you look at what you're seeing right now, okay, that top line there, there's 4 teams on the top line in the top 5. Georgia plays both Texas and Alabama.
And Tennessee.
You're right. That's a good point.
Tennessee plays Alabama and Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
We just need one thing to happen. We need Michigan to stay squarely on that number 12 line. And when they get leapfrogged and left out of the playoffs for Boise State, their AD has enough pull. That rule will be changed by the next morning.
That's actually a pretty good point. Okay, so now I'm about to get real controversial, and we're going to end our show with this. So 2 weeks ago, I put out a top 25 or a top 10 based on merit, without any preseason bias, no preseason bias, just based on what they have accomplished this season in the eye test, who they've beaten, that kind of stuff. I said this would be my top 10. So I adjusted it this week, and I spent like an hour this afternoon making this graphic. I was really proud of it. This is my top 11 and one most frustrated. I like that because so Reed and Rustin, tell us, why is number 12 in red? Why are they the one most frustrated?
What I just said about Michigan. They're going to get left out, and some mediocre team is going to take their spot.
Exactly. So this, if I were in charge of the top 11, because that's all that matters. Listen, top 10 doesn't matter. It's the top 11 that matter. That's the one that matters. So I'm going to do this every week for the rest of the season. But if I were ranking the teams, this is how I would rank them. Number one would be Texas, because in my opinion, they still have the best overall win in college football this year, and that was against Michigan. That was a top 10 win at the time. Still
Looks
a top
better.
15 win.
Yeah, looks better after Michigan beat USC this week as well.
Yep.
Absolutely. Georgia had a great win over Clemson, and Clemson is continually making that win look better. They beat Appy State by 46 points. They beat NC State yesterday very handily. Of course, NC State didn't have their starting quarterback. I get that. But that was a good win. And the more I've thought about it, I actually think I should flip-flop 2 and 3, because of all the schools on this right here, the only school on the screen that has 2 top 25 wins are the Big Orange.
Has not trailed also.
That's a great point. They have not trailed in a game yet this season. That's a fantastic point. We just crossed over 700 viewers. We're glad all y'all are joining us across all 3 platforms. We appreciate it. So Tennessee, based on merit alone, should be at least number 3 in the country, because they're the only team with 2 top 25 wins, one of which was a top 15 win on the road. Tremendous what they're doing, outscoring opponents like 8,000 to 18 now, or something like that. So I mean, or 28, I guess. So just incredible what they're doing. Number 4 would be Miami. They have 3 FBS wins, 1 against a Power 4 team in Florida. Number 5, Alabama, 2 FBS wins. Number 6, and the reason Miami was ahead of Alabama was because a common opponent, South Florida, Miami beat way worse than Alabama did. And Alabama had them at home. Miami was at their place. And so, very impressive win by Miami. Ole Miss at number 6, just beating the snot out of everybody. They haven't played anybody yet, but they have done what they're supposed to do in those games, and very much so taking care of business. Number 7, Ohio State. And people are like, oh, well, that's too low. They're better than that. Probably, but you have to prove it on the field. Yes, they have 3 FBS wins, but it's over Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall. And Marshall gave them all they wanted for a whole half yesterday. So until they prove it on the field, until Ohio State actually plays somebody, it's hard to put them up any higher than the people who actually have played somebody. Number 8, Utah. 2 FBS wins, one of which was a top 15 win. The only reason they're not ahead of Ohio State is because I think we could all agree, based on looking at the 2 teams, Ohio State would beat Utah if they played each other. Number 9, Michigan. Their only loss is to number 1 on this list. And they have a top 15 win as of yesterday. So, I mean, it's hard not to put them still in the top 10. Oregon, number 10. Sorry, Darth Ducky, I got you at number 10. Their only quality win is the team over a team who is just now this week ranked number 25 in the country, and that was Boise State. And that was only a 3-point win. Darth Dougie said I would go lower, actually. Number 11, Louisville. Louisville has beaten Georgia Tech and Boston College. They are playing very well. And then number 12, the one most frustrated, Penn State. Penn State's only quality, I mean, they did beat Bowling Green just barely, but their main quality win was at Morgantown, West Virginia. And so I'm giving them props for that. But if I were making the top 11, because that's top 10 doesn't matter, it's the top 11. So this week's top 11 and one most frustrated is that right there. Gentlemen, do you think I should move anybody, or do you think that's a pretty solid list?
You could maybe take Penn State out of that, honestly, the way they played.
I agree.
I don't know who you'd put in there for them, but other than that, I agree with Texas as a top dog for sure. I mean, there's no argument with that.
Yep.
Even with Ewers being banged up.
I would just say, as dumb as this system is right now, number 12 just needs to remain somebody with an athletic director with a lot of pull with the NCAA. I don't care which school it is, but it needs to be somebody who can pick up a phone and change a rule in 24 hours.
Well, so if this is how it played out, think about this. If this is how it played out right here, you would have the number 1 overall seed at the end of the year would be Texas.
Mm-hmm.
The number 2 seed in the playoff would be Miami.
Mm-hmm.
The number 3 seed would be Ohio State. And the number 4 seed would be Utah. So number 7 and number 8 would leapfrog all the way up to number 3 and 4. And so number 6, Ole Miss, would end up being number 9 or 10. And when it was all said and done. Just not a great system. Not a great system. They would end up being number 8, I think, something like that.
They'll be. I mean, they've already talked about changing it, expanding it. You know, they kind of plan to do that. I think even this year, finalize it for moving forward. So it's going to get changed. I would say we probably will have this current system for 2 years max. If I had to bet.
I think that's a good point. Very good point. Well, so we appreciate. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody's comments today. Zach said Clemson probably getting in. That was one of the ones I was debating on because they're playing very well right now. They are playing very well. They were right outside my top 12.
I can see two ACC teams getting in potentially.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Depending on how Miami keeps playing and Louisville in the hunt too. You know, everybody likes to get Dabo in there. Good for a soundbite.
So the standings in our week four standings, just so happens there's a new leader at the top of the leaderboard there. I'm just saying,
Did you rig this again?
Well, here's how you know it's rigged. He's number 1 and I'm number 2. So not sure how that happened.
Well, because you picked Auburn and I picked Arkansas. That's how it happened. That was the one difference that this past week. So somebody's gone 30-10 so far through 3 or 4 weeks. So that's pretty good. So I'm pretty stoked about that. It's been a lot of fun so far. You'll notice this week's results were not great. This was in the history of the Vol Bros Challenge. We have never had a week where 74% of the participants went 5-5 or worse.
Ooh.
74%. That was how difficult this week's slate of games was. So 3 of us led the week with a 7-3 record. It was me, my buddy Ryan, who's Vols and Cubs 27 there, and who else? Oh, our uncle, his name's Road Warrior. So those were the 3 people who led the week, 7-3. Pretty pumped about that. This week's games, we've got Kentucky Ole Miss, which shows how there were not 10 really good games this week because that one's not in as the 10th one. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, that is a top 25 matchup. BYU at Baylor, Wisconsin at USC, and then that classic Big Ten matchup there. It's not the Rose Bowl; it's actually just a conference game. Louisville at Notre Dame. There's a top 25 matchup. Arkansas at Texas A&M. Colorado at UCF. UCF is double-digit favorites right now. That's surprising. Georgia at Alabama, top 5 matchup.
UCF has the number 3 offense in the country right now.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
The Gus bus on the roll down there.
With KJ Jefferson leading the way.
Illinois at Penn State. That's a top 25 matchup. And Washington State at Boise State. I'm going on record right now. As of week 4, Washington State is the most underrated team in the country. There's no way Boise State should be ranked ahead of Washington State right now. Washington State has already beaten Washington and Texas Tech. And they beat Texas Tech 37-16. Texas Tech just put it on Arizona State this week. So Washington State, I'm giving y'all a shout out on the Vol Bros. Nobody from Washington State's probably watching this, but if you are, good job, guys.
Tennessee with the bye week, coming up. But Arkansas's at Texas A&M this weekend, like you mentioned in the pick'em, while Tennessee rests up. But kind of surprising thing, Arkansas's moved the ball really well this year. They're third in the SEC in total offense, right behind Tennessee, ahead of Texas. But they haven't scored it. They kind of shot themselves in the foot. They've been better, I guess, 30-30 than as a whole, because they are 5th in scoring, whereas Tennessee is 2nd in scoring. But the Vols defense will maybe get a test when they go to Fayetteville in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. Well, you got Bobby Petrino back up there, so
they're out there.
Man knows some
Tennessee
offense.
Fan looking forward to Arkansas's defense is ranked 11th in the conference. They have not been very good this year. So ball offense could roll in that one.
Absolutely. Kevin said, y'all have a good night. Good week. Hey, Kevin, we appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. SEC football said, I think Tennessee's year is next year. Does anyone agree with me? I would say it's this year, not next year, because they're going to lose so much off this year's team.
Have a new offensive line next year.
That's exactly right. Whole new offensive line, except Lance Hurd. That's it. So yeah, I mean, if there's a year, it's this one. It's got to be this one. People are giving predictions for Georgia, Alabama. Lincoln Park said 35-23 this weekend.
For Thursday.
Big game.
Absolutely. Well, Reed, man, we so appreciate you joining us as always. Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it, guys. As always, thanks everybody for watching. Enjoyed all the comments.
We got 732 people watching across 733 watching across all 3 platforms right now. That's awesome. Thank you all so much. I apologize I wasn't able to get to everybody's comments. Y'all know I try to hit as many of them as I possibly can. We spent probably 30-something minutes just going straight through comments earlier. So I appreciate all y'all so much for joining us. We hope all of you join us Thursday night. We will be live Thursday night at 9:00 p.m. Eastern time, same place. So we hope all of you have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Go Vols, baby. 4-0 heading into the bye week. Everybody's going to get healthy before we go up and call the Hogs and beat them pretty good too. So hope everybody has a great night. Go Vols.